Hi everyone. Oh boy, the only way I could explain this one is, Mom, he's doing it again. That is because I am rearranging my palette already again. And one very important step I try to bypass and shouldn't have, and please learn by my mistakes, and that is swatches. I did the color mixing, which was good. That helped me out in the end. We'll get to that in a minute. But the swatches, by placing them around, I could see what colors I want next to each other. I tried to do it with the gobs of paint, but it messed up the wells every time I tried to move them around. Yes, I did. I dug them all out. I just used a regular putty knife and I dug them in and they didn't come out too bad at all. Once I took out the permanent magenta that was over here and then took out the cobalt turquoise light that was down in here, and I thought that I could get to a final position of the paint colors, and it just didn't work. I'll show you why here in a minute when we go to the table. But what I want to do is show you that I've also expanded everything all at once for two different reasons. And that is, one, I had big problems with my alizarin crimson right next to my cobalt violet. These corners right here, this one to this one and this one to this one, I really like this palette, but you have to be really careful. If I grab my paints from here with a wide brush and pull it out, then I cannot grab this color without contaminating it from this color. And so for that reason, I really like the big wells that I could put a 1.5-inch brush in any one of these wells really easy, hence why they call it the big well palette. But also, you got to be really careful what colors you put next to each other. That's problem number one. I think it'll be solved now. Problem number two was that when I painted with loose watercolors and detailed illustration watercolors, I was trying to use the same palette, but I don't know if that's a good idea anymore. After I've been doing these demos for a while, it even got me thinking that this one will be for loose only. Why? Because I don't mind if I mix a lot of the colors. In other words, I'll have to be mixing my oranges now. I'll have to be mixing my purples. But having varied shades of all those colors won't be bad because I'm only rendering something. The color doesn't have to be critical. If it looks like an orange, then that might be okay. But when I do illustrations and I'm trying to do a daylily that's coming up in a close-up of a daylily demo, then I want to make sure that orange is as accurate as possible. So I may be better off starting with more colors that when you start talking about purchased colors, like a phthalo green or a phthalo blue or an alizarin crimson, when you're talking about the primary colors, and even a few above that, I just don't know how you could possibly mix a couple of colors to get an alizarin crimson. When some of these colors are made from scratch or from specific materials, they have a very specific look to them and have a very good mixing quality of their own. So for that reason, I would rather have then a hooker's green, a couple of other different colors, permanent magenta, some of the other colors that I slowly dropped out of this palette that I really may like for painting flowers, painting wildlife, anything in between. So what I'm going to do is use this palette, so you know in the future, for just loose watercolors. And then the palette I had originally that I was going to use for my extra colors, if I ever wanted to go back, a few demos back, I was going to keep my light turquoise, cobalt turquoise, permanent magenta, a couple of the other ones, just in case I want to use them but don't have the room for them in this one. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to have a completely separate palette for detailed illustrations, that way, if I want to start off with a more snappier hooker's green, then I'll already have a good vibrant green to start from, and then I can mute it down a little bit from there. Otherwise, if I try to mix a snappy green, it might not come out as snappy as I want, or more importantly, as accurate as I need it to be. If I'm only working with two colors, I can only get certain variations of those two mixed colors. They may fall somewhere, but starting off with a really snappy green to begin with may make all the difference in the world. as to accurately rendering a plant, a wildlife animal, and so on. So that's what I'm going to do. Hopefully this is the final time and I could actually get some painting done now. But what I'm going to do is use this one and 15 colors just for loose watercolors. But what I did was even allow myself a space between some of the ones I definitely want to keep separated, and then use this one, which has more room for more colors, but they're smaller wells, and I don't use big brushes for detailed painting. Then I could use more colors and have a smaller area to work with, which now only makes sense to me. Why I haven't thought of this before, I don't know. But sometimes it takes trial and error to really figure out what you want to go with. Let's jump to the drawing board and just see how these colors are going to work quickly so you know in the future of how I arrived about my colors. Okay, now here is my new setup. This is completely different than my previous setup, only since I'm going to work with this palette for loose watercolors only. And I really like this idea so far. I'm going to put it to the test over the next few demos and paintings, but I'm going to keep my hard staining reds up here in the corner, and then I'll have a space in between them. So these colors along with these colors will give me my purples. These colors along with these colors will give me my oranges. So that's why this one's gone and this one's gone. And then this one is too close to burnt sienna, which I could make with a little bit of red, depending on how sharp and how bold I want it to be. So for that reason, I will get rid of this one also. And then again, like I said, if I pull out burnt sienna, this is a 1.5 inch brush. If I pull it out and take it out to mix, and if I want this color, it better be able to mix with burnt sienna, because when I go to drag it out, it's going to definitely mix. Crossing these two is very difficult to do. So when I had the alizarin crimson down here, and then the cobalt violet right here, when I try to get out the cobalt violet, I was often grabbing alizarin crimson also, and because it was such a hard staining color, it really messed up a couple of my demos that you won't even see. So that is what started all of this, and now what I'm going to do is just use these for the loose watercolor only, and just to show you also what my swatches did for me is, here's this one. I'll borrow this one here, and if I put this down, there's my Winsor Violet. A permanent rose mixed with French ultramarine is a really nice Winsor Violet, or if I want to tone down just a little bit, then I could go with a cobalt blue and a permanent rose, and that one would be right here. So these will give me my purples, any blues, and any of the reds, but then it doesn't have to be critical since it's only a loose rendering of something. Okay, and here is going to be the new one. Now I could add some of these colors again. If I start off with a Hooker's green, then that would be great. Here's the purple matter right here if I choose to keep it, but what I'm going to do is lay this one out now next for the detailed ones. So when I do a detailed painting and I want to render the colors as accurate as I possibly can, then starting off with a few more colors might really help me do that. And then this way, I will also have more colors to work with, but I don't need a big of a space to use small brushes. If I use a brush this big, then that is very unusual, but usually I'm using brushes more along the lines of this. So for that reason, I'll have plenty of room that even most of the time I even just touch the paint itself and pull the paint out and mix it down with water or an additional color, whatever I need to do. But I think I'm really liking this setup now to use this one for detailed watercolors and the John Pike for loose watercolors. Let's go quickly into a painting I'm going to do coming up here. It's just a drawing, but then I'm going to use this particular palette to do that painting. Okay, here's the drawing I'm going to work from. This is a demo of daylilies coming up. I'm going to do this one more of like a botanical illustration, so I want my colors as exact as possible, and I'm really going to take my time with this one in a sense of just painting it as accurately as I possibly can. I got some really good photos of my own that I'll be working from, so I'm going to try and make this as accurate as I can. Just like a clean illustration, all white background. There's my orange I'll be working from. With the daylilies, it is orange. Instead of mixing oranges for this, I would rather start off with a nice vivid orange and then take it from there, whether it has to be yellowish, reddish, anything in between. So what I will do is work from my new palette setup with the 23 colors total for this one as soon as I get that palette together. But this one will be an upcoming demo also. I'm going to do loose paintings with one palette and detailed illustrations with another palette. That's it. So until I see you again, out in the field or back at the studio, thanks for watching.